Hello, Kevin here. How are you doing? I hope you're doing well. Making another video over here because I recorded a video in response to the Dear Fat People video. That's going to go up on the main channel depending on when this uploads. It's going to go out Monday morning. I'm not quite sure when this video is going to go live, but I'm irritated because I realized I recorded it on an SD card that is just a little too slow. So there's some drop frames. It's going to be jittery, but I'm not going to record it again because I feel like it's a weird thing when you scripted out something and you go through and you interpret it and you perform it. I mean, that's a weird way, but you go through and you perform it and then you go to go back and try and do it again is very, very difficult. It's very easy to come off as unnatural and fake. I mean, it's already unnatural, right? Because you've scripted what you're going to say in advance and you're reading off of this thing that you sort of recited in your head. So there's already kind of a level of disconnect, and then to try and do it again is challenging. And granted, if you're a performance artist, if you're an actor or something, then you do that on a regular basis. You learn a script and you perform it for months, and you get better and better at it. And that's a lot of fun, but it's also not the sort of thing that I'm really able to commit to on a long-term basis. So, or rather for something that's kind of a video for a single day. Okay, so the Fat People video I want to talk about because the problem with making these videos and trying to keep the main channel videos under 500 words script-wise, which comes out to around between 2.5 and 3.5 minutes. The problem is that it's difficult to dive into things in depth, and it's very easy to be misconstrued, and it's very easy to lack context. And I think, to a large extent, that is one of the problems with the Dear Fat People video. Now, I should be clear, at the risk of irritating some of you, I watched the video. I didn't find it particularly offensive. It wasn't hugely funny. There are some parts where I'm like, it's kind of amusing. Mostly the cut, timing, and jarring stuff tended to work, but the material isn't anything new, but it wasn't anything that I would think was particularly heinous either. I know a lot of people, I watched a couple of the responses, a lot of people talk about, you should look at real comedians that are able to offend in a good way. And I'm trying to think about some of the stuff that Carlin has said about fat people. And to be honest, I think he's much more vitriolic about it. But the reason, and so I think people are right in that they indicate that there are comedians who. Oh, I heard a beep. Nope, I'm good. Okay, they're right in that I think we tend to have a much more positive view toward people like Carlin than we would have to this individual. But I don't think it's because the material is inherently more friendly. I think it has to do with context, that Carlin's material tends to start off talking about kind of big global political stuff. Sometimes he talks, and then he'll generally break into things that we all have in common, and then at that point he kind of goes into the social riffing. But the idea is that by the time he's gotten to that bit, he's first gotten us all laughing at how stupid the powers that be are. Then he's got us laughing at how stupid we all are, kind of regardless of race and gender and identity and size and anything like that. And at that point, there's enough trust that the comedian is coming at this from the perspective of trying to lampoon and trying to be funny, that you can get away with saying stuff that's much more egregious. And there are some people who think that Carlin absolutely crosses the line, and I couldn't fault him for that. But I think the fact that you have couched your edgy material after developing a rapport with the audience matters significantly, and has a significant impact on how what you say is perceived. And I think one of the problems here is that YouTube doesn't lend itself to that. We're not putting out hour-long comedy bits, right? No one would watch. Well, some people would watch those, but it's hard to get traction with that. And even if you do, it is very easy to get it is very easy for someone to extract a small snippet of that and to present it without context. And if you are the type of person that is particularly sensitive to something, Seeing that without the context, without the understanding that this comedian is approaching this material in good faith, then it's very easy to have a negative reaction to it. Now, I should say that regarding the material, I wasn't particularly offended. I wasn't particularly hurt. I enjoy jokes about fat people. I joke about myself sometimes. That said, I know that my own experiences with obesity, morbid obesity, whatever, gonna die soon obesity, are unique to me. And that it would be wrong for me to say, well, because I didn't find this offensive and over the line, then it's fine. That I can no more be a representative for all fat people, and I can be a representative for a group that I don't belong to. And I mean, I can say that my experiences with obesity have led to depression and not self-harm in the strictest. I don't know. People brand around self-harm, and I'm not entirely sure what that term is supposed to encompass. For me, regressing to severe alcoholism and depression and suicidal ideation was a problem that I dealt with that I think is directly tied to my weight. Granted, I also feel like there are things that I have not made it as much of a priority because I have put other goals in my life above that, which I think is easy enough to do. So I do feel like there is an extent to which, at least in my case, if you were to call me out and say that my obesity problems are my own fault and that I need to own it and need to take more responsibility for that, I have to agree. There are certainly circumstances which have contributed, but at the same time, it is ultimately my responsibility to try and fix it. And that if I don't make the effort, there's no amount of, there's no sort of intervention committee that's able to go in and go, okay, well, it's actually, sorry, that's on us. We'll go ahead and fix it for you. The last thing that I want to say, and this is what I was trying to get at in the main video, because I think this is really, really important, is that when someone makes these videos that get a response, when you put something out there, and this is not a commentary on the character of the video maker. I don't know the person. I know that I looked at the Twitter account. I looked at some of the older videos. It seems like at this point she's very vigorously trying to defend her material. And I think that, so there are two ways that you can look at that. You can say, well, obviously they're a discriminatory asshole person, which I think sometimes people are assholes. But more than likely, what happens when you put something out there and when you're trying, because if you watch that video, I think what I did take away is this person is really trying to be funny. Whether or not they succeed is up for debate, but you can see that they are making an effort. If they didn't make an effort, they wouldn't put up a video. When you make an effort on something and it gets a very negative response, it's very easy to go ahead and say, no, you're wrong, because you've already fought over your own internal demons to make something and to get it out there. And that is really something to be proud of, because we have so many internal self-criticism voices that the fact that you were able to get anything out there at all is remarkable. And the idea that you get something out there and people are very negative towards it, that's heartbreaking, and it's very easy to go, they must be wrong. Do you have any idea how hard it was for me to make something? I think this is true for everybody, no matter, even if you think this person is an asshole or not, making stuff is hard, and putting your opinion out there is very hard. So a very natural response is when people criticize is to get really, really defensive because you are in a vulnerable position, and to commit and to double down and say, well, no, they must be wrong, and I'm going to go ahead and fight this, and I'm going to go ahead and argue. And importantly, when we go up and we sort of broadcast this and we signal boost this and we say, oh, this is unacceptable, and when we fight and we push, then what we're inviting that person to do is to respond back with equal force. That either they can turn around, they can say, this thing that I worked on is wrong, and thus validate those own inner demons that automatically censor the stuff that they say. or they can double down and they can fight, and we end up with just this escalation of people arguing with one another that I think does less good than it does harm. Maybe you're out there and you're saying you can represent that this is not representative of what everybody thinks, and we want other people to know you're trying to appeal to third parties that please ignore this person, and maybe there's some good to be gained there, but you are equally prompting them to come back in full force and escalate, which I think is problematic. If you're really hugely concerned about the message that has gone out, I think the right thing to do is to try and broadcast a message of your own that you think can be helpful, that doesn't, whose primary goal is not to get a rebuttal, right? That if you are concerned about fat shaming and the effects of that, the best way to assist is not to go and fight the trolls. I mean, you can, but the best way is to find people that really do need your support. There are plenty of people that need your support, and they need your unconditional support. It's not contingent upon you need to look this way. It's not contingent upon you need to start feeling better about yourself. It's not contingent about anything. Reach out and if you're going to spend 5 minutes trolling someone who was fat shaming, maybe instead take those 5 minutes and send an email or make a phone call or even write a letter to someone who may be suffering, and just say, hey, I just figured I'd check in, see how you're doing, hope you're doing well, that sort of thing, and reach out and just be a friend to people. The amount of time that we invest in being friends to other people is much, much, much better spent than arguing against something like this. And that's what I wanted to get across, and I hope that I do a decent job of that in the video. We will have to see. Yeah, so those are my thoughts. I apologize, this is a long, rambly video, but I wanted to try and at least clarify, because I don't want to put this out and then realize, it's not fully explained or something like that. So, I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. If you have any further questions, I'm happy to clarify my own opinions and that sort of thing. I hope you're doing well, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.